we're all in a new time, right? We've seen plenty of webinars, listened to many of great presentations over the past 6 months, really almost a year, discussing COVID and the impact of the supply chain. And over the last few years, we've heard a lot of buzzwords thrown out as prior to this 2020 realization that businesses aren't quite ready. This term digital transformation has been tossed around for a while, much like PLM was in the initial days of 2000 and beyond. But now it's become kind of a buzzword. I think executives have become tired of it, don't have time to invest in it. But the reality is, it's not a bad phrase, it's not a bad term for what companies need to do, what they need to invest in, and what they need to ensure the processes they take to ensure sustainability and scalability for years to come. We aren't out of the woods yet, so to speak. COVID's still here. Companies are still dealing with this. It looks like we're going to have to accept a virtual workforce and supply chain, global supply chain, for at least another year, if we're being honest. That doesn't mean consumer demands are going to diminish or product complexity is going to falter. I think you're going to see an increase in consumer demand for personalization of products across all industries. This is going to make things quite complex for manufacturers, especially that are spread out across the globe. And at IPX, when we work with organizations, we really try to define that holistic view of assessing the organization to really identify how they're going to transform in a sustainable fashion. That's across the workforce, the processes, those legacy processes that have kind of been band-aided over year after year after year, and also their systems and their data integration. And for us, that's a large adjustment. And for many organizations, whether you're a startup all the way into large, dominant global enterprises that we work with, this isn't easy. A lot of them get kind of dazzled by the lights by system change with hopes that, purchasing a new IT tool or upgrading to the latest release it's going to fix all those issues. The lack of skills within the workforce, the lack of flexibility across their infrastructure, that work from home infrastructure. Is it secure? Is the cloud secure? Do they have the processes that can handle this? So there's a lot of complexity in the landscape of today. And, Henrik, you and I've had a great opportunity over the last few years to have some great discussions, and from your perspective, where does Configit fit in this landscape of today? And what do you feel is going to happen with, product complexity?
Yeah, so thanks, Joe. It's become very evident when we talk to our customers that at least last few months, they have shown the value of being able to work remotely from everywhere and with all the processes in your organization. And that holds for the provider of products and services, but also, of course, when you're a customer that needs to go through the buying experience, that you need to be able to do this remotely and collaboratively. And we see that as a very strong force. It's been there for some years, and when we talk to our customers, they see the need to go away from siloed and isolated systems, and they need to have things come together. Otherwise, you cannot give customers a digital journey if you have isolated systems. The speed of things is so that there is no room for manual work in between. It has to be integrated and work real time to fulfill the expectations of the customers. So we have seen that, and I've heard from some of our customers, they realize now for the first time they've been working remotely for a month, and they suddenly realize, well, they can actually do the business. There are some gaps, and they want to get those fixed because they could see how that might transform how they run their operations by having better and more integrated tools. So I see what you're describing just as well, listening to our customer base, and on these challenges of the constant changing nature of what manufacturing companies are seeing, I see this desire to find a sort of a platform they can use and work from, because they know next year there's gonna be some new requirement coming up that they need to fulfill with their processes, and it's impossible to continuously change the full system landscape. So they are looking for ways where they can have platforms and they can develop and adjust in these platforms. So that's very much how we like to think in Configit about it, and how we see the customers are thinking about it currently. So it's a lot about collaboration between people and systems, and the ability to change and adapt to the constantly changing requirements. And the rate of change seems to be just going higher and higher. There's no sign of any stability in what you have to handle as a modern company. The rate of change is just going up. So I think this collaboration is really a key thing we see as well in fulfilling the demands that the companies have to.
And for us, IPX, for the last 10 years, we've really been pushing, that enterprise term. I think we were probably one of the first in the industry to really come out and push, enterprise collaboration and integration. I think those two words that you touched on are paramount to success. When we work with these organizations for process improvement or system improvement and or system deployment, typically they're just really focusing on that siloed engineering efficiency, right? I mean, that's the kind of in a stereotypical fashion, let's focus on engineering and everything else will get better with it. And what we see are a lot of these hidden repercussions, and I'm not going to read them all off the slide, but many of us should be familiar with this, right? You've got service and field issues. You have recalls upon recalls that are honestly typically due to poor configuration control. You've got intervention resources spent to recover schedule or quality. You've got complex corrective action issues. You have change upon change. You have poor quality in the eyes of your customers. All of these things that most CEOs will say is important to us, quality, customer experience, typically they suffer, and for us, it's going in and again and seeing where we're dropping the ball within collaboration and integration. And what can we do on kind of this right side simplistic graphic to really drive innovation? A lot of companies preach innovation, and we work with some amazing high-tech companies as well, and some world-class leading automotive organizations and transportation organizations that are pushing electric vehicles. But a lot of the companies we work with that have been around for a long time, innovation really gets tied into corrective action changes. You lump your innovation R&D in with systemic fixes. When you look at quality, it's the same thing. Regulatory compliance is always a big one. I think with the new workforce of the future enterprise, regulatory compliance is going to be quite complex. With a virtual workforce where you're allowing your employees to work wherever they can and wherever is best for them or best for the organization, we're going to have to look at what that means for regulatory compliance, for security, especially in the medical device industry or the defense industry. And for us, when we talk about solutions with the customer, it's really about identifying who they are and kind of that fit for purpose need. And one question we always get, Henrik, and it's, before we go to this next slide, I kind of want to get your thoughts. When you look at this left-hand side, all of these hidden repercussions, most organizations, invest in the PLM system, product lifecycle management. And many forget that's a methodology prior to the system, but they think the system, PLM system, will fix all these issues. What's your experience, and where's Configit fit in this PLM mindset, this PLM world where all we need is a PLM system to get better? Where's Configit and CLM fit in on these case for actions?
Yeah. So I mean, we've heard that as well, that if just you get the right PLM system and do it well, then you'll have solved the problems. But that's not the reality. I mean, the PLM systems and the PDM systems, they are only part of the value chain. You use that in product innovation and developing the products and engineering them. But that's only a small part of the challenge you have, because you have to look through the full value chain. So you have to get the products ready to market. You need to add market insights into your innovation process. You need to add market information when you want to bring it to market. You have sales perspectives. There are many considerations as what is it we really want to package up of all the options we could do. How want to put that to market? You need to take that into your development process. It's not done by engineering in isolation. And then when you go to manufacturing, you got to be sure that the orders you are now gonna get from the market, because that's what sales have told the market they can get. You better be sure you manufacture it, and that's not just the product engineering. It's also the manufacturing piece. And then later, when it's out there and you need to service it, you need to have control over how can you service it. If you want to upsell, you're in a much better position if you know what it is you have shipped to the customer and what they are using, because then you can direct your sales to what makes sense for them or modernize an installation. So for instance, we have worked with an elevator manufacturer, and a typical part of their business is that after 10 years, they offer a modernization of the elevator because there are new features coming in, new electronics, new stuff they can do, and it's a big business for them. But to do that efficiently, you got to know what did you sell and what version was it, and what could the modernization offer be. So what we see that the manufacturing companies that really want to do that, it's an end-to-end. It's the full value chain, and there's not one of these normal siloed business systems that solves a problem. You need to get to a point where you get integration and thinking across, have a system that helps you do that, but also do the change in the organization so you can make this happen. You need new ways of collaboration, and the tools can enable that, but it'll also be an organizational change to adapt to it and make sure you can do that. But when you do it and do it successfully, I have companies saying, wow, this is transforming our business now, our way of doing business. Because suddenly, because we have so good information about the current product offering we have, then when we have to make a new version or the next model year of a car, we have a very strong starting point. We can take some of the ideas from sales and marketing that we need to add. We can immediately show what's the effect of that compared to what we already have. And so you can sort of do a delta development, what should be new, and that helps engineering tremendously in reusing old designs and parts and tests and tools, if it's very clear what the reuse is. So if you get it to work, get it linked, and get the organization changes in place, you can basically transform and have a much more efficient way of doing your business. So I think this is, it's really exciting. Companies are struggling with it, but those that want to go there, there's a way forward, and you can unleash a big potential in working with it.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on. It's a great transition to our ecosystem excellence model. This is what we see at IPX as kind of the future ecosystem of any business, regardless of your size. We've been inundated over the last 2 years with artificial intelligence. And at IPX we divide that as action-based, autonomous, and/or adaptive intelligence. And you've got augmented reality, and you have additive manufacturing, you have model-based engineering, and then it goes on and on. Then you have your standard pillars, right? You have your business process management, you have the governance and regulatory, you have supply chain optimization. But the reality is, and you touched on that silo mentality, and for the attendees that know about IPX's CM2 certification, that end-to-end mantra is something we've been pushing for 30 years, and having that connectivity. And to be honest, the reality is we've just now seen systems from a platform perspective, and solution providers get what's going to be needed to actually have that connectivity and that integration and that holistic digital platform, and to link all these initiatives together, to link all of your verticals and your horizontals within your organization, so they can efficiently communicate, they can efficiently manage change, manage innovation. And at the end of the day, it's all about getting innovation out the door faster with guaranteed quality. So for us, when we work with these organizations and solution providers, the ones that really get it, you come in and you assess your initiative, you assess where you're at, you assess all of those fit for purpose needs from a process perspective, from a capability perspective, and a system perspective. But the big one where most companies get stuck is they kind of throw the digital platform just to IT. And I think that's wrong. I think there needs to be a partnership with IT and the business to ensure this digital platform, this connective tissue, as you can see this little dotted line here on this simplistic graphic, really is robust. And this is something I'd like you to expand on, Henrik. And I know a lot about the Configit solution and kind of the nuts and bolts, which we'll get into. But I'm excited to hear, what's your vision, and how does Configit and CLM, where's its place in the future of this enterprise ecosystem, and how's it going to really empower and enhance our digital platforms across all industries?
So we have a slide here. This is just two of the graphics we use to try to explain how we see CLM in a wider enterprise. And the sort of the graphics we have on the left is saying, you have these different systems. There are PLM, CRM, ERP, supporting different parts of the functions in the business. You'll often have tons of others. That could be legacy systems or manufacturing execution systems. And our view is that if you're going to make this work well, you have to work together. You have to link it up so they have a consistent view of the products your business are working on. So the products you're developing, selling, and manufacturing, and so on and so forth. So our view on that is link it up. And how do you link it up? Well, we strive to combine what's there, because you want to reuse. If you already have defined in your PLM system all the engineering rules that govern your products, well, we don't recommend you start authoring them again in another tool. Use them. But you might need to add something from the sales perspective, the commercial aspects that captures customer needs and how they map to the engineering part. And then we would enrich it with that. So for us, it's combine what you have, just get it together, but never author things twice. Just reuse what you have, and then enrich it with what you need for the different downstream systems you have. And we sort of split it up to, if you look at full value chain, there are really many points where this is important. But if you sort of take the four main areas, we think of this as, there's something in engineering, there's something in sales, manufacturing, and service. That's the four main areas. But if you go one level deeper down, it's going to touch upon a lot of areas. So we have one of our manufacturing automotive customers. They try to find out how many people in our organization needs this information about the configurable products. They found 700 teams, not people, 700 teams around in the organization that needed to know about that. And a lot of that was earlier driven off Excel sheets with all the challenges in that. So imagine what happens when they get access to the same information that's always current, and they can collaborate on it, and they know how to use it. It's a big difference. So this is sort of how we approach it, this platform thinking, linking up, combine, reuse, enrich, and that's the approach we want to follow. But it comes, as you talked well about, Joe, with all these changes around it as well. You have to tap into how the organization works, and you're going to make changes there as well. You have to make sure it all comes together. It's not done alone by getting the IT in place, but that can help drive the change. But you need to make the change around it as well.
And that kind of ties into, for the attendees that know about our CM2 certification, it basically is the industry standard for CLM and PLM, right? That graphic we just saw on the left-hand side. But when you really dig into an organization and DNA from a systems perspective, process perspective, we need the ability to manage that from as needed requirements all the way to as decommissioned, how it was serviced in the field. And that's from your standard kind of traditional file-based companies and to those striving to be model-based. And this is the future. And some companies are on their way. Some are kind of tiptoeing into the model-based future, but the reality is you've got to be able to manage this data and all of these requirements from inception until decommission. And there's a lot of value in that. And I think, Henrik, you touched on one point before I transition to you. There's a competitive advantage that IPX has always preached in our training, being able to do this and manage change quickly, but also get that product data, that as service data back into development. And you touched on that a little. That's where your gold is, right? When you see how a product's being utilized in the field, or your consumers are adapting, or what they're applying from an aftermarket perspective, you should feed that back into product development, and that drives innovation, that drives demand. So I'm kind of interested in knowing, from a complex perspective, I know there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with CLM. Can you discuss, a little bit about your VT or virtual tabulation? And I think that's kind of where the magic happens with Configit.
You're right. So when we go through the processes you just showed and have to link things up, we work with what we call a feature string or a configuration string, and it's sort of defining the configuration of the product in a very broad sense. It could also include services. It could, it's in the technical aspects. But our view is you always have this sort of the full DNA of the product. You have the full string, and that defines it exactly. And then depending on where you are in the process and what you're doing, you're going to have different perspectives on it. So you can have a view from sales you can have another one if you need to visualize the product. You need to know in a 3D visualization, for instance, you need to know other stuff about it. When it goes to manufacturing, they need certain parts of it to drive the parts and the assembly processes. But for us, that's sort of the secret behind it all. There's a string that glues this all together, and it sort of lives with the product as well. So if you change over its time, you would change these configuration pieces. So we work at this level. We call it the feature level, which we have found is a beneficial level of abstraction. So it's not a parts level. It's not a pure specification level. It's just finding a nice level that makes it possible to link the systems and still have the systems keep their role in the game without copying that or ruining it. But you have sort of a language of communication between the systems that hits a right level of abstraction and people can work with throughout the organization. So that's sort of a key in our thinking, and the technology we developed is able to handle this process, as I talked about, combining the rules that govern the complex products, pull them together, the product data, and relate them. And in doing that, you can get some quality assurance. You can find out, is our bill of material for manufacturing, is that complete? Are there configurations we plan to sell for which we don't have a manufacturing assembly plan? We don't know the parts because our super BOM for manufacturing is incomplete. So when you bring this together, you can do this back and forth in understanding the different viewpoints and how they affect one another and whether they're consistent. And it'll give you a way to find errors and get rid of them before you launch your products to market and to manufacturing. So that's sort of a little bit of the magic behind the scenes we use in making it all work and come together, Joe.
And I know we have a few minutes left, and I would recommend to anyone that wants to dig into virtual tabulation, there are some fantastic white papers on Configit's website that I've read. It's fascinating technology, and Henrik, I think you've done a good job of describing it. And within these last 3 minutes, what type of organization would really benefit from Configit's CLM solution? Where's the sweet spot? I mean, is it all industry, all sides of companies, or who's really the target audience, and who's going to benefit from this right out of the gate?
Yeah, so we work in two very broad areas. We work with industrial machinery and components, as we call them, industrial equipment, and then in the automotive sphere. And in automotive, it's passenger cars, it's trucks and buses and agricultural equipment, that sort of business. And in these two areas, it's been very clear that there's value to be gained from this approach. And in fact, the bigger the organization, the more value you can generate, because the more often you have an inhomogeneous, heterogeneous, inhomogeneous system landscape and processes that you have to come together. So when you start on a journey of getting that come together, you can just start in one area, start improving. You'll quickly see value and benefit. So the bigger and the more complex, the more value you will unleash. But we have also partners that work with small organizations and have found interesting areas outside of this pure discrete manufacturing where they can deliver services. So we have a customer in the Nordics called Ecolabel, and they do they have the role of putting the marks on the products of whether they are obeying sustainability requirements. So you get this little swan mark on them, and they use our product to define all the different variants that are these products that need to get the swan label on them. So something that they don't manufacture, but they need to have good definitions of all these configurable products and when they are allowed to give them a swan mark. So there are also areas outside this mainstream where we mainly focus and where we have a lot of experience working with customers. But it's amazing when you go around how many places these problems are and how often you realize something that from the outside looked pretty simple turns out to be extremely complex. So one of our customers is Vestas doing wind turbines. And if you look at a wind turbine, you know, it's wind in and power out. How difficult can it be? Well, there are more than 100,000 parameters in a wind turbine. You can tweak and twist, and depending on how you set them, you will have a different profile of wear and tear and the power being generated from wind turbine. So there are really many places when you open the box and look inside it, there's complexity that needs to be handled. So we have seen that in really many places. So
fantastic. And Anya, I think this is where we'll turn it over for you if there's any questions.
What is the difference between Configit's configurator and the embedded configurators in PLM systems?
Yeah, so
sorry, yes, Henrik, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'm okay to start. Or would you go first, Joe?
No, absolutely not. This is all you. You answer that one.
Okay, yeah. So the embedded configurators that are in the PLM systems, they're very focused on the engineering part. So they are there to help create the super bomb of material from an engineering point of view. They have no aspect on the commercial side, on the sales side, or the service side that you do after selling the product. So they're very engineering focused. So our approach is this more holistic. We would take the engineering rules together with the sales rule and be able to combine them and compare and check out the overlap between what you want to sell and what you're engineering, so you can find sort of insights in both areas. But we would use the same base of rules for all the systems. It wouldn't be isolated to PLM. So we can take the rules from PLM, put them into our system, combine them with the commercial sales rule, and then make it available for other systems. We can also provide a solve function back to the PLM system. If you want to do a bomb explosion in your PLM system, we can provide you with a solve service that also take the other commercial aspects into consideration that you have from sales. So you get a complete solve engine. And then what we experience is that the engine behind the scenes we use is really powerful, and that varies a lot in the PLM systems. Many of them have difficulties handling big systems. So if you had a system like wind turbines with 100,000 parameters, I have never seen a PLM system that is able to handle that.
I actually have a question on the line here, Henrik, that's quite specifically around systems, where he's asking, he or she, sorry, is asking how would Configit handle configuring more than one system on a factory layout? So for example, nested configuration. Could you add some words around that?
Yeah, sure. So So there are different levels of complexity of that when you come to this system level. So the basis is sort of a component level where you have a component that's sort of a self-contained defined component that has some configurable options in it, and you describe that in one way, but then you take these components and join them up into systems. And one level of complexity here is you have a predefined size of the system. So you have a number of components that make up, for instance, a car. You have the engine, the powertrain, the wheels, the seats. All that joins up into a hierarchical structure, giving you a modular model of the full product, so an assembly structure. So that's how we think about it as well. You have these components, and then you can use these components to aggregate up into a system that consists of a number of components, and you can reuse that over and over to get a full hierarchical structure, which is also the mechanism you use in many systems, including PLM and PDM systems, to manage complexity. And then there's a next level, which is a much more dynamic level. So that would, for instance, be at a factory level. So where you sort of at the outset, it's not a combined assembly. It's a big unbounded system you're starting to define and develop, and you cannot, when you design it, know in advance exactly how many modules are you going to use, how many components are going to be there. That's a big dynamic system. So this is the more dynamic system level, and there are different ways to handle these. If you look at the first I described, where you have sort of a hierarchical, that you can handle almost as one component technically, and the way you manage it, it's just an efficient way of reusing, but you can do it like that. When it comes to this more dynamic level, like building a kitchen or a factory, there are new mechanisms that comes into play because you have this sort of unbounded world you have to manage. So there's another way you have to write rules about how these can be combined and how you analyze it. And you'll typically also need new types of user interfaces to help you through the complexity of configuring such an unbounded system. And often that's assisted by visuals or graphics. So you can do 2D layouts or 3D layouts, and that would be our approach. We would use the same way of doing the components and the assemblies, and then there's a slightly different way of handling the system level that's often needs some special UI to guide you and give you the overview of that system.
Thank you, Henrik. I think I'll be cutting this off in a few moments. So if there are any more questions on the line, please do submit them. Any that we don't take during this session, we will be able to answer you offline. You'll get this directly in an email from us where either Henrik or Joseph have added their answers. So I do have one here for you, Henrik, that's around our integrations, or how we are able to integrate with other systems, for example, CAD, PLM. What do you, sorry, I'm just finding the question again here. How do we integrate with some of these systems like Siemens, ARIS, PTC? What would you add to that?
Yeah, so our approach to integration is this kind of platform thinking, as I described a bit earlier. So because our system never exists in isolation, it's always in connection with something else. So we have always done a lot in ensuring there are integration points. So we develop general APIs where you can build these integrations. Some of them we have ready-made off the shelf because we have seen it over and over again, and others will be done on a project basis or by partners. And we believe in having a flexible way of integrating, because of course there are standard systems that you often see, but there are big variations in what you need to integrate to. So you might have a standard CRM system, but you might have your own developed CRM system. Or you could have Salesforce as your CRM system, and then you have an old 30 years old PLM system in the background you're not ready to decommission. So you often have situations when you go to the bigger organizations that some of it might be standard systems, that's good, you integrate to them, but you also have to do something special for the other systems. So our approach is to have a good toolbox for our own consultants and from our partners and our customers to build these integrations so they can do it quickly and efficiently, and not just betting on having a list of standard integrations, which we also have, but that's not enough. You need to be more flexible. And I understand from some meetings I've had with Gartner, the analyst firm recently, they advocate this approach in the space, in the extended PLM space, that you just have a platform, because you will see particular integrations you have to make. So it's much better that you have an efficient way of getting them done, and you sort of have a one size fits all. So you have a few predefined interfaces and then integrations and believe that'll do the job. There'll always be something special. So it's good to have this toolbox, and that's our overall approach to integration.
Thank you, Henrik. Unfortunately, this is all that we have time for today. I do want to take this opportunity to thank Joseph Andersen from IPX and Henrik Reif Andersen for joining us today, and to those of you that have joined the webinar. If you have asked any questions or would still like to ask a question, please do so. We do collect these together and respond directly via email after the webinar. So I'll call this for today, and thank you very much for being a part of our webinar today. Have a lovely rest of your day or afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, and take care out there.